In 1874, the state of Arkansas became the battleground for one of the most dramatic political conflicts of the Reconstruction era, the Brooks-Baxter War. This violent struggle between two rival factions, each claiming the governorship, not only threatened to plunge the state into chaos, but also highlighted the deep divisions in post-Civil War America. What started as a disputed election escalated into an armed conflict, drawing in militia forces and even prompting federal intervention. The Civil War had left the South in ruins, and Reconstruction was an attempt to rebuild it while ensuring rights for newly freed African Americans. In Arkansas, as in many southern states, the Republican Party dominated politics, supported by a coalition of freedmen, northern carpetbaggers, and southern scalawags. However, not all Republicans agreed on how to govern. The party split into two factions: the Minstrels, who supported President Ulysses S. Grant's administration and moderate Reconstruction policies, and the Brindletails, who sought a more radical approach. The gubernatorial election of 1872 saw this division reach its peak. Elisha Baxter, a moderate Republican, ran against Joseph Brooks, a more radical Republican who was favored by many freedmen and reformers. The election results were controversial, and although Baxter was declared the winner, Brooks and his supporters claimed voter fraud. For nearly 2 years, tensions simmered between the two factions. Brooks continued to contest the election results, and in April 1874, he took drastic action. Claiming that he was the rightful governor, Brooks and his armed supporters stormed the Arkansas State House in Little Rock, physically ousting Baxter. Declaring himself governor, Brooks established his own government and called on his allies to enforce his rule. Baxter, refusing to concede, rallied his own forces. What began as a political dispute quickly turned into an armed confrontation. Both sides amassed militias, and for nearly a month, Arkansas teetered on the brink of full-scale civil war. Gunfights erupted in the streets of Little Rock, and both factions attempted to control strategic locations across the state. Casualties were significant but limited compared to larger conflicts, with about 200 deaths. But the spectacle of open combat in a U.S. state capital alarmed the nation. With the situation spiraling out of control, President Ulysses S. Grant was forced to step in. Federal troops were stationed in Little Rock to restore order, and Grant made it clear that he would recognize Baxter as the legitimate governor. Realizing they could not win against federal authority, Brooks and his forces stood down on May 15, 1874. The aftermath of the Brooks-Baxter War had profound consequences. Although Baxter was reinstated as governor, he distanced himself from the Republican Party and aligned with the conservative Democrats, who were regaining power throughout the South. His administration laid the groundwork for the new Arkansas Constitution of 1874, which effectively ended Reconstruction policies in the state and ushered in an era of Democratic control. The Brooks-Baxter War underscored the fragility of Reconstruction and the challenges of governing a deeply divided post-war South. While it was a relatively small-scale conflict, it demonstrated how unresolved political and racial tensions could easily erupt into violence. The war also marked the decline of Republican power in Arkansas, as Democrats used the chaos as a justification to dismantle Reconstruction-era policies and suppress African-American political participation. Today, the Brooks-Baxter War serves as a reminder of the turbulent years following the Civil War and the struggles faced in trying to create a more unified and equitable nation. It remains one of the most significant, if lesser-known, episodes in American political history, highlighting the difficulties of enforcing democratic processes in the wake of conflict and social upheaval.